Hello, everyone. Is it working? Can you hear well? It's good? Okay. First of all, thanks for the invite, Thomas. What he forgot to say that in the middle of the conference, we had 2 snowstorms. So most of the things that are open are bars. Museums were shut down, flights canceled, but the bars were open. So that's a good excuse. But the conference was good, right? I think we could take a lot from that. And thanks all for being here today, and especially a bit earlier than normal. And I'm Caio Manzotti. I'm working at eBay in our European headquarters in Amsterdam. And it was quite a challenge to go to the conference since it's the Amazon headquarters and being an eBay employee. But I think the problem was for them, not for us. So when I got the invite for this conference, I just figured out that I'm turning 10 years since I migrated from graphic design to UX. So I took the opportunity to review a bit what changed through the years. And this is going to be more a playbook type of talk with small bits of information. And that I hope that can spark some insights, reflection, and trigger conversations. So what I like about communities in general, especially IxDA, is the opportunity to listen and talk. So you guys, if you want to talk about something, bring the topic. Just come ahead and discuss the topic, and there's totally openness to share ideas and to listen as well. And they're both things that I love to do, basically. And the way I split the content was basically our responsibilities in the individual level, the team level, and by the team here, I don't mean your design team. I mean more your squad, multidisciplinary team you work with, and your responsibilities with your company. Starting with the individual. This beautiful screen is one of the first interfaces I designed as an UX junior. It was a consultancy company, so I was the only UX there, and with a few developers. And I had no reference, no other designer to share ideas, no other people that would understand what I was trying to do. And I was reporting to the IT manager, not even development or whatever, just the general IT manager. And the process back then was around 2010, 11, was pretty straightforward. The client asks, you do. There's no question, no nothing. So if you don't know something, you guess. And by the time it was ready, was the time that we would basically test. So we would deploy, put in production for the client, and maybe there would be a few changes here and there. Later, I figured out that it actually have a name. So it's called guesswork. So when you try to figure out and find the solution for something when you don't have enough information about it. And I believe we should avoid it at all costs today. We have all the tools and resources to don't guess. So you can ask people, if the company itself doesn't know, you can ask users, you can do whatever is possible to figure out and get the answers for the questions you have. And even if you couldn't find an answer, at least you tried, so it's the argument that like you couldn't find anything, so that's our guess. But you cannot just jump into questions and surveys and everything without have a proper thinking on that. So it's important to be rational and understand how you come up with your decisions. So basically, like your decision-making process is how you're going to solve most of our problems. So if you don't know how you can come up with a solution, it's probably going to happen that you come up with different solutions for similar problems, and then you get inconsistent. And it's not something new. This guy's called Bruno Munari, crazy Italian artist, inventor, everything. And in 1981, he published this book that's called Da Cosa na Cosa. Hope there's no Italians here that could judge me. And on this book, he actually reflects about the design process. But as a good Italian, he uses a recipe of green rice instead of book, chair, or whatever. What he's basically trying to say is that if you have a problem, there are a series of steps you can take in order to get a solution. He's a designer. He talks about design, but he always uses different examples to make things easier. But if you look into the process he presents here, you're going to find a few similarities to things we do today. First, the problem definition. Understanding the problem, empathizing with the problem, and collecting data about that. Creativity, experimentation. So you kind of, the iterations you make to find something. And then you prototype, you validate, and you build it. Sounds a bit design thinking, right? And any other framework, but it's 1981. So we've been doing that for a while. I just think that we took some time to migrate this idea of the design methodologies that we used to have in the past for industrial design, for graphic design, to the digital world. But luckily, we did. So focus on the process, try to understand as much as possible which one worked best for you. And the first thing is the problem, right? So it's important as well that when we get a briefing, when we get a work to do, nowadays it's usually the product manager that brings something, right? So we have this work to do, this is the priority, and I would really like that everyone could critique the problem. So why this is the most important thing? So make sure that this is actually a problem that worth be solving. So how many users are suffering from that? So it's pretty much questions you're gonna have to ask to answer later, but you're also possible to make for the person that is bringing the problem to you. Just make sure that they did the homework. Otherwise, it's gonna be on you to solve that. And then you need to be convinced that there is a real problem there. So the worst thing that can happen is that you're gonna be in a design review. You present your designs, the prototype, this is my solution, and someone raise their hand and say, yeah, but why you are working on it? Like, how many users are being impacted? And you're like, don't know. So it loses all the confidence on what we're doing. And when you're convinced that it's actually a problem, it's easier to get more information about that as well. So you can ask data about it. You can ask some other departments on how they could provide information to help you solve the problem. And because if it moves us ahead, it's going to have a huge impact. So it doesn't matter if it's 100 users, like you said, one user or 100 or millions of users, it's going to have impact in someone's life. So better be something that worth to be done. And I want to bring, one case here, a borrowing form. So back in 2015, I was working for a startup that was doing accounting software for small business. Exciting. And more exciting than that is that I was responsible for the features related to tax. So every sale that a company would make, they would have to fill the form and to be in compliance with the Brazilian bureaucracy. And they would spend 5 to 15 minutes to fill each form for each sale. This is because we're a startup and we're trying to make the process easier. And it was already painful. Oops. I think it's not. Sorry. Yeah, get back here. So we work in a few iterations. And after 3 months of iterating, trying to automate as much as possible so users will not have to work on that, we came up with a lighter version. So instead of users filling the form, they would just confirm if it was right or not, with an accuracy of 99 point something%. So I said, well, nice. But the real impact was not on the interaction itself, was the results that we could potentially give to our users. So 12,000 hours of bureaucracy saved. So they could easily focus on their business. And some of them were like a company of one. So they're freelancers, or they're trying to thrive, to navigate through all the bureaucracy and the challenge that is being a small owner of a business in Brazil. Not easy, I have to say. And just a quick recap on the individual side. Avoid guesswork, pay attention to our decision-making process, and believe in the thing we were solving, because it's going to have a huge impact. Jumping to the team level. Before going to university, I decided to take a 1-year technical course. So by the time was pre-press and print media. So that's the thing I would like to work with. I was very into printing. And one thing I realized is that as a printer, I was an executor. So I was taking someone else's job, a project, and giving life to that. So I was worried about ink, subtract, light, finishing, all this stuff in order to potentialize the project to come to like real life as best as possible and with a proper final result that the creator was expecting. And then I realized that this actually happens with a few other professions. So for instance, an architect do the project, but who executes is actually the builders and the engineers. So it brings to our world where actually we do the project, we design, but code is there to bring things to life. So I don't think it's wrong to say that design is actually what's implemented. So for users, what they face as design is what is in production, not our artboards on Sketch or Figma. So we do the project, but what users are going to face is not built by us. So it's important that we can have a proper relationship with the other ones on our teams. So trust and respect to other people's craft is essential. So it's not going to come to life by their own or through our hands. So it's like a mutual thing that we share responsibility to bring that to life. And one way of gaining respect that I found is that explaining, educating, because most of our stakeholders are not designers. So they don't get what we easily get. All our small design decisions, all our knowledge on the small things that doesn't come like for them that easy. So why you choose that specific line height, why you choose that font because of something. So it's always worth to explain and give some reasoning on why you made these decisions. So they can easily empathize and grow their knowledge on development and design. But I think the topic that we share most with the team is success. So imagine that we're delivering like constantly 10 features in a row, and someone say, wow, that's impressive, like which one worked better? And we're like, no, we delivered. And yeah, but which one, like, what did you move? Like, no, we did our best guess, and it's live. That was the objective, bring that to life. So if you don't measure, like, how do you know if it's worked or not? So it may be the case that you solved the first thing in a way, and you replicated that method through all the way to the others, but you're not measuring. So you don't know if it's actually worked or not. And I have another case for that. In 2017, I was working at Motorola, and I got assigned to the redesign of Moto Display. Does anyone here have a Motorola phone? Yeah? Oh? Thanks. But here's probably not the biggest market, but this app has 100 million users. And better not mess with that, especially because it's the first thing you get when you take your phone. It's over the Android, so it's just the highlights on what's happening on your phone. So first thing, you dig in. I took the opportunity to dig in all the research, all the metrics, everything we had about the app, to not start from scratch. So collect everything, bring ideas from people that were working in the company for longer. There are some people that were working for like 15 years there, so they had some ideas and some knowledge on how phones work. And we did a lot of explorations. It's a quite simple design. It's basically a clock and a few notifications at the bottom. But it's extremely hard to iterate on that because it's so minimal that everything you change is a big change. The first thing you drop is the analog clock. We figure out that most people don't know how to read the time on that. On our research, so I said, yeah, it's a no-go. So we tried a lot of stuff, different clocks, different sizes, different colors, backgrounds. And at the end, after 6 months, a few intercontinental trips, workshops, dozens of user testing, we figured out that what users actually need was an easier way of seeing the battery and an easier way to reply. How you justify 6 months of work into 2 features? A battery ring that is now blue, and an action to reply something. But the work we did give us the security that we're doing the right thing. So when you took the measurements, in a few months after launch, we went from 4.1 of 5 on Google Play Store to 4.4. So this basically justified all the work to bring a better ring. And I'm still using mine, so just in case, I'm still a user of my old app, and when they change something, I always give some feedback yet. So again, a few recaps on that. And I know that the first one can be kind of polemical for some people. If you want to discuss that, if you have ideas around that, I think I'll be around, so let's discuss. So for users, basically design is what's implemented. And communication and education is key. We cannot afford communication flaws or conflicts within our team. So the team's success is basically our success. So you can get this work, these metrics you improve it in the company to fight for something bigger. That brings us to the company level. We're specialists, right? Why company hire us? They basically hire us because we are a kind of insurance against risks. So they don't hire us anymore just to make things pretty at the end of the process. They want to reduce the risks. And one way of doing that is bring some designers in. So we mitigate risks and try to provide the best solution possible for the problems that the product have. And that's fine, but we need to show that there's a bit more than that, right? This is how we start working. But then we can also join strategy. We can act pretty much ahead, not in a reactive mode, just on problems. We can also work in opportunities. Money matters. So when you join a company, be aware that they make money somehow. Otherwise, they would not be a company, right? So basically, if they have a subscription model or they run on ads, be aware that the way you design is going to be impacted by that. It's nice. I want to remove all ads. Cool. But if you have an alternative to that, it's better. Otherwise, you're just going to bankrupt. It's worth to learn a bit, at least the basics of business, because as the maturity grows, you basically need to fight for something in another scale. So you want to start a design system, you want to hire a user research, you want to double the team, you need to show the business impact of that. That's not going to be prototypes, that's not going to be a few designs. You need to show that if you invest here, you're going to get that in that amount of time. So you need to speak kind of their language and empathize with that somehow in order to get what we need. So I highly recommend that. It's changing, I think, the way we are perceived by other parts. And when it comes to maturity, I don't think it's wrong to say that we're in the third wave. So development had their wave. They're well-defined and respected process. So I don't think that any company will go against the need of code review, QA, unit tests. No one deploys in production anymore because they gain this maturity and respect over the years. Same with product and prioritization methods and all the business value that they add. And we are behind, I think, but we achieved a lot in the last years. So, but we still need to push for that. And I think this kind of event, like people trying to get interested in something different and learning and bring their learnings to the company, I think it's a way of doing that, basically. And we're okay with time? Yeah, okay. Because I want to conclude with something that is actually is the starting point of something else. So the product experience actually is not our responsibility. It's a collective responsibility. And by that I mean that everyone basically has their hands on their experience. But we as designers have a huge influence on the overall experience. And I would challenge you guys to actually step in other areas. So get into your customer support if you have one on your team. How they support the users that have problems. Do you have like close contact with them? They bring problems to you. You help them solve problems. Another case that happened with me is that we decided to step in on sales. So we did a project. with the sales team in the same startup, the lovely startup with tax and everything else, that we helped the sales team to give a better understanding for new customers on how the features actually work. Because we realized that some people were selling stuff that were not real. So, and then we're having a high churn because of that. So I said, well, how do we reduce that? Acting beyond the interface. So we can act in other mediums that are not the interface. So you can bring these problems, solve problems beyond that. And that's part of how we expand from just the product to other areas, so we can solve problems internally in a different way as well. And that's it. Thank you. Do you have time for questions, or would be, yeah? So any questions to Caio?
Yeah. Thanks for the inspiring talk. And my question relates to what you said about designers should learn the basics of business. Do you expect this to be bi-directional? So do you have an expectation for the business folks in companies? And did you actively work with them to make them aware of UX matters and how they influence their business results ultimately?
Definitely. And what I think is that we have the opportunity to be the ones that step into their field instead of the opposite. So we can bring our ideas there instead of letting them have the interpretation on what we do. I think this is going to accelerate the process. So if you can step in and explain some stuff and get into their world and bring the knowledge you have from design, I think it's going to be helpful. I think there's a McKinsey report that I think only 5% of executives are properly aware on what UX and research, all this work basically actually works. So there's another 95% that need help.
We have time for one more. Okay.
Hi, thanks for your talk. So we have the opposite problem where the client knows what they want, so they sort of dictate to the design team what to build. So our answer to them has been, you focus on the content, the what, in other words, and we'll focus on the how it's done. Is there some kind of, examples or some kind of a short article or anything that would be good to present to the client about this kind of thing? So giving them an idea of where their role is versus where the UX role is.
I don't recall any, but what I would do in this case is challenge them to get to the root of how they figure out that. So, okay, you're telling me to do this because, how you found that, where you got the data, or somehow just a few questions to try to understand how long they went to decide that. And another way is also at the other end, measuring the impact of what they asked for. If you could add some steps here to prevent damage. So if everything they ask, hurt the business somehow, it's a proper way of saying let us do our job and try to figure out what's actually the issue here. You can also say you can accept that as well, and in the middle, just build the argument that was not a problem. So you test with a few people, you build a few prototypes, and you show that actually visually, and letting people express themselves, that doesn't work. Nothing like a GIF of someone trying to use something and not work to let people really uncomfortable.
Yeah, it would be just good to have some best practice or something to show them, this is not just a...
What you can do as well is bring them to a collective session. So try to work together and extract from them as much as possible, so you can start to work in a kind of collaborative way. So they feel part of the process, because they probably feel that they want to be in control. So, but there's another way. There's no one working, another working. So you can be together solving the problem as well.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Large applause, please, for our speaker. And
Thank you.